Graham Potter has been in charge of West Ham now for 100 days, and in that time, West Ham have only gained 13 points from 14 matches. They didn't beat Southampton on the weekend, and Niclas Füllkrug, among a lot of the fans, was furious. West Ham have huge problems. Jim.
They do. I think, first off, if we're talking about West Ham on YouTube, we should acknowledge that what happens is that in the comments, someone will go, they should have stuck with Moyes. They thought they could get better than Moyes. Look what's happened. I think West Ham fans, it had run its time. You didn't sack him, and you have every right to want to enjoy the football your team play. So let's get that out of the way. Get that out of the way straight away.
Good.
We understand that. Niclas Füllkrug's comments were quite spectacular, though, weren't they? Let's be honest. He talked about it being a mindset problem. He said, I'm not disappointed, I'm just angry, like a dad, which is very, very enjoyable. He also said that it's happened a few times that they score a goal and then one part of the team wants to score another, the other half of the team just wants to defend, and it all sounds very disjointed. I think the most damning thing is that he said the coach is very clear what he wants, but we have to do it all. Everyone has to do it. And that, to me, suggests that, obviously you have to put some blame at Graham Potter's door if he can't get his team doing what he's instructing. But that makes it sound like the players are more of an issue there. And also, like, there's not much leadership at the club. I think if you look at them lately, they've fallen into that horrible, horrible trap of a team where the season's basically over. There's nothing to play for. They're not going to get relegated, and that they're not going to achieve anything of note. And the players stop running. Yeah, like it's the most basic fundament, and it's astonishing that you ever see it at top level football or in the Premier League. But there's just a real lack of energy about that team at the moment. And this is a historically bad Southampton team, and West Ham sort of invited them on, which is
Southampton probably should have won the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's it. I think that those who don't watch West Ham so much and have kind of largely forgotten about them this season, that game brought them back into some kind of spotlight to show you just how poor it's been, really.
Yeah.
I mean, with the decisions that have been made by the hierarchy of that club, will come onto that, have just been quite baffling, really. But you look at the problems on the pitch, Graham Potter coming in there, and Potter talked about needing to have time, and all managers say that, and I think that's fair, and I wouldn't really blame him on this. But there hasn't been a new manager bounce at all. The performances haven't been improved, maybe a little bit here and there, but there's not been much to go on. So you've got to look at some of those players and you think, well, what is it? Is it because Lopetegui, sapped any joy out of the season for them? As you say, is it the context of it? There's not much to play for. Whatever it is, the fans deserve better.
Absolutely.
You don't turn up and go, they know they're not going to get relegated, so they just phone this, and you say they don't run. It's poor, and you can imagine the levels of frustration in the stands at the London Stadium, because you mentioned it earlier, and I'm going to mention it very briefly again. The Moyes era, they win that trophy. Yeah. They're going places. They get Lopetegui in, and it just falls flat. Yeah, completely flat. And the football right now, it's not entertaining at all.
No, and you have to. Yeah, I think from outside of West Ham, there's an idea, isn't there, that they've it's a quite functional squad with some real talent kind of sprinkled on top of it. But actually, I think the way the season's gone out, I think Jared Bowen can hold his head up high. They're also lucky that he can never leave, because if Danny Dyer is effectively your father-in-law, you're not going anywhere if you play for West Ham, which is great.
He's in the bag. He's
the golden handcuffs there.
Yes.
But I think Kudus has had a poor season. He kind of flattered to deceive a little bit. He looks a little bit sort of out of ideas. Lucas Paquetá, understandably, he's got a difficult situation hanging over him, but his output has dropped. I think Thomas Soucek has been pretty reliable, but and Aaron Wan-Bissaka as well, another player who I've been really impressed with whenever I've seen them play. Other than that, there's a lot of...
But they're very patchy, though.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very, very patchy at best, at absolute best. I mean, yet they've obviously had some injuries as well, and notable ones to Michail Antonio, who always puts a shift in.
That's a horrible injury.
But a horrible injury. You're just glad he's alive, for crying out loud. And then Crescencio Somerville has been another miss.
Yeah.
So, but this is not really. You look at the position, you look at the performances. I don't think you can say but injuries.
No, but to be honest, Marcus, I'm glad you mentioned that, because, and this is according to physioroom.com. And I believe this is up-to-date information, they've had the fewest injuries all season.
Well, there you go.
And, this could have been really, really bad if they'd had, even even a few more injuries to key players, it could have put them in the mix for those relegation spots. I know they're miles off it, but they've also had the best injury record in the league. So that is a little bit of luck at a really good time for them.
Yeah, so you can't blame it on that. They have been helped by the fact that the three clubs who are going down have been historically bad. And also, I think Man United and Spurs being so bad as well has kind of taken the heat off them quite a bit. But Füllkrug said it's a mindset. And that I find interesting because some of the players, when Potter took over, there was a bit of hope. Suchik himself said that some of the training sessions he got really excited by. He was saying that even in the five-a-side games, the levels of intensity and competitiveness had been raised. And he said, we're now even in training, we want to win. And he thought, the mindset is being changed. But you look at the performances and you look at the points tally, they seem to be well off that. Now, again, maybe there's the odd flicker here and there. But I think you could say it is a mindset at the club because what else explains this?
Yeah, and that's often the biggest part of a manager's challenge, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And that is the thing that takes time. I think this is probably what Graham Potter is talking about. Mm-hmm. He's often talked about how he wants teams that are sort of tactically flexible, that are possession-based, that press hard, that do all the things that all recent kind of top modern managers say they want. And he is not managing to get that into this West Ham squad.
Not yet.
Not yet, no, indeed. And it just makes you think that there's a huge overhaul that needs to happen. Now, Tim Steidten, the director of football, who they recently parted ways with, it was essentially a disaster. Two different managers in a row wouldn't have him at the training ground. And I think that's part of it, isn't it? It's
the
sort of managing upwards as well as with the players.
Yeah. By the way, do like the video and subscribe to this channel. We'd bloody love it if you did. You mentioned Tim Steidten there. This talks about the structures at that football club that have been criticised time and time again over the years, understandably so. Going back a few years, again, to mention him, they get David Moyes in to say, help us, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Moyes almost like re-establishes them as, I say, as kind of a mid-table or looking up the table Premier League club and they win the Conference League, of course, which was great, and had some good jaunts in the Europa League as well. So suddenly there's a different feeling at the club. And Moyes, his time at the club comes to an end. We can all agree. And you think, right, how can you kick on? Well, at the time, Julian Lopetegui going there, some people questioned that. I can't remember if I was one of those people or not. maybe it was with hindsight I questioned it. But anyway, certainly with hindsight, you look back at that and you go, yeah, that was an odd one.
Yeah.
And he seemed to it didn't fit, but also seemed to sap any joy there. I mean, there was talk about, he'd never give players days off and all this kind of stuff. So it was an odd fit, to say the least. He, I believe, in terms of permanent managers, I think he was one of, if not the shortest reign in West Ham's history. As I say, in terms of times in charge for a permanent manager. So you see how bad that was.
Yeah.
That reflects badly on the board.
Definitely.
It reflects badly on Lopetegui, of course. But again, it's a strange decision. And suddenly there they are again in a similar situation now to what they were when they wanted Moyes to come back and kind of sort it out.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, well, when does it end for West Ham? At some point you think, right, kick on now. Now you've got a chance. There's a good feeling around the club. It's an attractive place to go for people. A London club's always going to be attractive, but with that Conference League win and the great journeys in Europe, and with some talent on the pitch, Paquetá's a good player. I know he's got all the off-field stuff, but Potter said he's been working on that. But you can mention some players. You've got to add to the squad. And it's just as flat as a pancake.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a bit of a head spinner to have a coach come in the middle of a season like that when there's already clearly a sort of lack of direction it's throughout the structure of the club, because like you say, there was no new manager bounce. And I think at this point you have to, particularly referring back to Füllkrug's comments about the players not following the manager's instructions, you have to just think, all right, Potter's going to get time. He's asked for that. He deserves that.
But the board need to back him.
It's the sensible thing. Absolutely. I think West Ham are actually in an okay position financially.
Yes.
So I think they will back him in the summer. And I think they might have a little bit of a clear out, and it looks necessary based on this. He's had long enough, I think, even though it's only 13, 14 games, whatever it is. He's had long enough, I think, to get a decent amount of players to be following his instructions. And if there are players there that aren't buying into it, you've got to look at that and think, all right, well, then we need to move on from you.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it doesn't work out of Potter, then goodness knows where they go next. But Potter's in charge, and I think, let's see how they do, because there's pressure on him as well as a manager. He was offered other jobs. He's still seen in a favourable light. He was linked to the England job when that came up.
This might be his last chance at a Premier League club, really. If it
certainly a sizable one,
yeah,
you might say. But the hierarchy at the club as I say, the criticism of them, I think, has been justified over the years. As you say, this business with the sporting director, Tim Stein, it's just poor decisions. They've now turned to Potter, and a guy who has, for an Englishman, has a bit of a European flavour, if you like.
You mean he's got a roll neck?
He does, yeah. He's got a roll neck, absolutely right, and speaks another language. But he now, the onus is on him to go and do something. He did say when I can't remember if it was when he just arrived or certainly after a little bit of time, he said, there are resources here so that we can strengthen. This summer is huge for them. This summer is a chance for them it's a chance for Potter to get more of his ideas, more of his management ethos, or whatever you want to call it, his ideals in place. Work on man management is a big thing for him, emotional intelligence and all that kind of stuff. That's what he's been dealing with. And to give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe he's just been using this time to really try and get all that in a kind of a free hit. Again, that's annoying for the fans. You want to see performances, but next season is when Potter will be judged. But this summer, the board have got to back him.
Absolutely.
If there are resources there, they have to back him, because this squad, they've got some talent in there, but they need, I would say, a new spine almost.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the midfield's not running. They need an upgrade on Mavropanos at least. Jean-Claire Todibo's been okay. We know about the striker problems they've had for a long, long time. It's very difficult to fix, but they need to attempt to do it. And the funny thing is obviously we talked about the structure at the club, and that probably makes this very easy to say, very hard to execute. Is the Brighton model or something like it would be perfect for West Ham. Absolutely perfect for West Ham. They'd be in a great position where they can get in players who are perhaps under the radar a little bit, then sell them on for massive profit later if need be, and give them a home where they can actually achieve something as well. They are in that sort of bracket of clubs where there could be a really attractive destination.
They wouldn't want to sell to Chelsea, though.
No, certainly not. Certainly not.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think, though, that centre half is a position that's an obvious place for them to strengthen. I mean, is Kurt Zuma coming back from his loan spell in Saudi Arabia the answer?
Potentially damning.
I'd be surprised if it was the answer. Let's say. I think goalkeeper as well is an area that they could. I think Areola's a good goalkeeper, but if Potter, with his wants to build from the back kind of way, I wonder if Areola's the man to do that.
Yeah, I think you're right there actually, because he is one of the players I would have put in the bracket of their better performers. But you're absolutely right.
But he is a good keeper. He's a good shot stopper and all that. So I think he's he's there on a merit times. But as I say, looking at Potter's style, maybe they might want to do something differently there. Fabianski, I think his contract might be out in the summer. There's a few players there. There's one or two players that they've got in on loan. Evan Ferguson, who not pulled up too many trees there, but he's still a young talent. He may well just go back to Brighton, and that's the end of that. So a lot of work to do in the summer. A huge job for Graham Potter. Can he get it right? Next season will tell. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your views in the comments. And of course, like the video and subscribe to the channel.